What is up? Welcome into yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. Thank you so much for making us a part of today, however you're watching, however you're following, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, for free on the iHeartRadio app, or you're putting a face to the voice and you're watching on YouTube. We appreciate that as well. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell a friend about the Ben Garcia Show, or maybe you just want to keep it all to yourself. That's fair too. It's a lot of good takes, and you want to sound smart in front of your friends. You want to steal them. That's fine by me. I'm all cool with it. Either way, a lot of things to get to in this edition of the Ben Garcia Show. We have trades, we have games, we have narratives to react to. So without further ado, let's jump into it right here. So Diontae Johnson is traded to the Baltimore Ravens. And this is literally my instant reaction to this. Normally, this would be a Benstant reaction, but I'm filming the whole Ben Garcia Show right now. Might as well just do the whole thing right now. Diontae Johnson traded to the Baltimore Ravens. Gave up a 5th-round pick or whatever exactly it was. Looks to be a 5th-round pick getting back for Diontae Johnson and a 6th-rounder. So effectively gave up nothing. This, to me, is the best value so far in the trading market. DeAndre Hopkins, I still have my worries about how much in there is still left in the tank. Still a ginormous catch radius, and just allowing him to take on the number one role responsibilities and bumps everyone back a couple of spots. I feel like that just helps the Chiefs' offense as a whole. Doesn't need to be so DeAndre Hopkins dependent, but there is a key for him to be there and play a prominent role. And then you have the Amari Cooper acquisition, the guy who still maybe didn't cost too much, but I think a little bit more than we assumed that the Bills were going to have to give up. A number one wide receiver, and again going to play yet an effective role on that team. So the Chiefs load up. They go get Josh Uche. They go get DeAndre Hopkins. The Bills go get Amari Cooper. And that leaves what is clearly the third or second best team in the AFC between the Bills and the Ravens. You can range those teams however you want to do so. That leaves the Ravens out there trying to find the right guy to add to their team. Diontae Johnson is a perfect fit to this Baltimore Ravens team. He's not necessarily a vertical threat. He's going to work the middle of the field. He's going to be able to be that effective route runner to beat man-on-man coverage, and is overall just a good complement to what Zay Flowers has. This Baltimore Ravens team is clearly a Super Bowl contender. But the only way they're going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs is if they can, 1, out-coach them. It's probably not going to happen, given how good Andy Reid is. So 2, more disciplined, and 3, out-talent them. The Buffalo Bills, you're not competing with them. You'll deal with them when you get there. Load up Lamar Jackson with some weapons so you cannot do everything you can to sell out on his running ability. This is an effective move for the Baltimore Ravens, and it's exactly Baltimore Ravens. Go get the smart, shifty veteran that doesn't cost a lot, that is going to get open and is going to make guys miss in space, a good route runner that is the perfect complement to Zay Flowers. And now you look at this Ravens team, and it's the most weapons Lamar Jackson has ever had. Zay Flowers, a good vertical threat, good hands, help you get cheap touchdowns over the top. Mark Andrews, a possession, big body tight end that has hands like a wide receiver. Isaiah Likely, backing up Mark Andrews. A little bit quicker, a little bit twitchier. Derrick Henry, the best short yardage back in the league. And then you throw Diontae Johnson to that mix. A Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver with good route running, shiftiness, getting open in the open field or getting open in the mid-levels of the field, and just allowing everyone's jobs to be easier. Not to mention, Keaton Mitchell's on his way back, the dynamic running back from last year. All led by Lamar Jackson. And this is my main takeaway from it. I have been a Lamar Jackson supporter, defender. I have went to bat for the guy. But now it's go time. I'm not saying Lamar Jackson has to win the Super Bowl this year, but it is absolutely an AFC Conference Championship appearance or bust. Now listen, they lose to Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to hold that against him. Now, again, it depends how he plays. If he plays well and they lose to Patrick Mahomes, whatever. Everyone loses to Patrick Mahomes. Everyone loses to Tom Brady. If I counted that against every person that lost to Brady or Mahomes, everyone would be terrible in our eyes. But no more excuses for Lamar Jackson. No more. Good, capable head coach in John Harbaugh. Good, capable front office. Good stability of ownership. Great quarterback, clearly. Great running back. 2 very good wide receivers. Rashad Bateman is in there. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Keaton Mitchell's on his way back. This is the most stacked roster he's ever had offensively. Do not tell me about the defense. Not everything is going to be perfect. Last year's defense was awesome. His offense was so-so. It was mostly him and not a lot else. You cannot blame everything now on the defense. And as much of a supporter and as much of a defender as I've been with Lamar Jackson, as much as I believe he is a bona fide top 5 quarterback in the NFL and is just as effective running as he is passing, regardless of what the couch potatoes try to tell you, Lamar Jackson has to make it happen this year. He cannot be a playoff disappointment once again, which means he's got to show up. He's got to show out. And I believe he can do that. But now with all these weapons on the offensive side of the ball, there are no more excuses for Lamar Jackson. And that is my belief. I'm not here to crush Lamar. I'm just here to hold every quarterback to the standard that I believe that they should be held to. I hold it to Brock Purdy. I hold it to Patrick Mahomes. I hold it to my guy Kyler Murray. And I hold it to Lamar Jackson. This is a lot of weaponry that Lamar Jackson's got. And it is such a smart move by the Baltimore Ravens is saying, what can we add to this team without A, giving up our entire draft capital, and without B, disrupting the chemistry in the room? Oh, let's go get the guy that hasn't been able to play on a winning football team, a real winning football team. The Steelers were never making it past the first round when they were in the playoffs with him. A guy that is a good route runner, nice hands, and the ability to just make opposing teams creep up a little bit in the short game. A very good possession wide receiver. And a receiver that, surprising to me, went for only basically a 5th-round pick. Ravens didn't lose anything into this. This is a full-scale, low-risk, high-reward. But then there's that other avenue that I was talking about before. It just puts pressure on the Baltimore Ravens now. There are no excuses. That defense has still got a lot of good players. Don't tell me how bad the defense is, and don't tell me anymore that Lamar doesn't have any weapons. It's time to be honest. It's time to put our best foot forward. It's time to put our big boy pants on. This isn't me clowning Lamar or saying something out of the ordinary. Lamar Jackson is phenomenal. He's a 2-time MVP. You will not hear anything bad about me when it comes to, or bad about Lamar Jackson when it comes to my takes. But, got to be fair. The playoff resume is not there. The last real puzzle for Lamar Jackson outside of a Super Bowl is playoff viability, is his ability to perform in the playoffs. And with all these weapons, and with more than enough talent on defense, and a good front office, and a good owner, and a good head coach, and a stable organization, and all these weapons, it's go time. It's no more excuses for Lamar, or no more he's doing it on his own. Diontae Johnson adds another level to this team. And when you look on that roster now, it is full of stars and Pro Bowl wide receivers. Not to mention an offensive line that is more than stout. There's no more excuses for Lamar. If he shows up to the playoffs again this year and lays an egg and everyone's mostly healthy, I'm not going to cut him any slack. I'm going to rip him like I do everyone else. I'm not expecting that. I don't want that. Lamar Jackson is electric. And this is going to be his time to officially answer the bell. And again, my standard is not a Super Bowl. My standard is he must make it to the conference championship game. And whether he beats Patrick Mahomes or not going to hold it against him. It all just depends how he plays. And with the acquisition of Diontae Johnson, the heat in Baltimore gets turned up just a little bit to get results this year. No more waiting. Well, give me 8 to 10 minutes to rant on this. I can promise you this will be one of the last times I talk about the New York Jets on this podcast, on this show. If you've been watching the show, if you've been watching me, if you've been seeing my reels, my vines, my TikToks, or any of my social medias, you know where I stand with the New York Jets. I wasn't being clickbaity. I was on this 2 years ago. I'd said, you can't expect me just because you add a 39-year-old quarterback and think that I'm going to buy into you. The New York Jets will always be the New York Jets until they fix their ownership and front office. Their ability to be a stable organization is just horrendous. And at this point, they're the worst organization in football. It ain't the Cleveland Browns. It's the New York Jets. Do you know what was the longest playoff drought in the NFL? It's the New York Jets. I know the Browns are awful, but thankfully for them, whichever way you want to look at it, Deshaun Watson's leg basically snapped, and now they don't have that guy clouding up their roster and their team anymore. Now they kind of seem like a little bit of a plucky, fun team with Jameis Winston. New York Jets are nothing short of miserable. Davante Adams, I tried to explain to everyone 2 weeks ago, I wasn't hating on Davante. I had mentioned that there are multiple teams that should go get Davante Adams that could use Davante Adams. I had mentioned the Cowboys. I had mentioned other teams. I had mentioned the Bills. It just made no sense. And I had went after Davante Adams. I said, listen, if you're just going after the judgment, if you're going out of your way to join the New York Jets, you're going out of your way to join what is clearly not prime Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to come after your judgment. Just clearly, I'm going to come after your judgment. I'm going to think that you don't make good decisions. And I got a lot of pushback on that. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, well, the New York Jets are 0-2 with Davante Adams. They haven't exactly played star-studded competition. It's been the Pittsburgh Steelers and Russell Wilson that appears to have some sort of a renaissance. And then the New England Patriots. The Jacoby Brissett-led Patriots. Well, Ben, Jacoby Brissett didn't play that full game. A lot of it was Drake May. Okay, well, Jacoby Brissett had the game-winning drive. This Jets team is miserable. To the point where I feel bad for Jets fans. I almost feel as bad for them as I do Browns fans. The only reason why I say Browns fans is because Browns had to endure what was Deshaun Watson for the past couple years. The New York Jets are an abomination of a franchise. And this is where my take really comes for the New York Jets. You know, there's a lot of talk about Aaron Rodgers and if he should come back, if he should retire. What's the next step for Aaron Rodgers since they're clearly A, not going to be a playoff team, and clearly B, spiraling quicker than we all thought. Literally worse this year with Aaron Rodgers than they were with Zach Wilson a year ago. The New York Jets should be the one making the decision on Aaron Rodgers' future, not Aaron Rodgers. This whole question about, well, should Aaron Rodgers retire? He clearly doesn't have it anymore. If the Jets allow this clown show to go on another year, they're even worse of a franchise than I thought they actually were. If they allow this clown show, that is Aaron Rodgers and all of his buddies and the ruling with an iron fist, they are worse of an organization. They are much worse of an organization than I actually thought. The New York Jets should not be sitting there wondering if Aaron Rodgers is going to come back or not. If the Jets allow Aaron Rodgers to be their quarterback next year, or even worse, allow him to continue to rule with an iron fist, they deserve every reckoning that is coming their way. They already deserve every reckoning that is coming their way. They've consistently made bad moves. They fired Robert Saleh. They went and got all of Aaron Rodgers' buddies, and it's accounted for 2, count them, 2 wins. Well, Ben, that's not fair. Last year he played a game. Okay, fine. 3 wins. Even though he played 3 plays in that game, I think. This is not in the hands of Aaron Rodgers. And if the Jets want to start to begin what is the journey of being a competent organization, they're not going to let it be in the hands of Aaron Rodgers. That would be pure idiocy. The Jets should not allow Aaron Rodgers to be their starting quarterback next year. They owe Aaron nothing. They have given Aaron everything. They've given Aaron his OC. They've given him all of his buddies. Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb was on that team last year. Devontae Adams. He has effectively, LeBron James style, ruled this team for the past year and a half. Enough is enough. Have some self-respect. Don't let Aaron Rodgers pull the plug on you and retire. You pull the plug on Aaron Rodgers. You owe him nothing. Well, Jets fans will say, well, it's not fair. Well, what else are we going to do? Go draft a quarterback. Go figure it out. Or go be terrible for a year and then go draft a quarterback after that. Well, I guess you're already terrible. But if the Jets allow this to go on, this freak show, this clown show, this nonsense, this anything but football culture go any longer, they deserve every ounce of reckoning that is coming their way. But if they want to show that they actually do have a grip on this franchise, and they've seen how the Aaron Rodgers experience has gone over the last year and a half, they will pull the plug on Aaron Rodgers, not let Aaron Rodgers pull the plug on him. Or I guess I should say, they will not let Aaron Rodgers pull the plug on them and retire. Sure, if he wants to retire, fine. Sure, if you want to come to some sort of agreement where it's a mutual thing, but you let Aaron walk, it's fine. Internally, make the decision to turn the page. Go get a real head coach. Go establish a real organization, some stability, some top-down leadership, a culture. Stop letting this be run by the players. It was so predictable, but no one else really thought this outside of a couple of people. The only person that comes to mind who agreed with me on this was Nick Wright, and he was just seen as an Aaron Rodgers hater, and maybe there's some truth to that, but there's no real defense at this point. The New York Jets are a tire fire. Aaron Rodgers is a tire fire. It's not working. Stop trying to convince yourself, if I just add one more player, it'll work out. Go get a different head coach. Pull the plug on this clown show. Establish a culture. Find some real leadership. And get your head out of your ass. Because this has gone on for far too long if you're the New York Jets. You've given Aaron everything. You owe him nothing. And at this point, if you continue to roll it out with Aaron Rodgers, it's just like the old saying goes. What is it? You lay with dogs, you sleep with dogs, you're going to get fleas. That's what the Jets are doing. Just getting fleas, laying down in the dumps of what is a quarterback and his friends who are clearly mostly over the hill. And that goes for not just Aaron Rodgers, but to a lesser extent, Devontae Adams. Or Randall Cobb, who was well over the hill. Get off the train ride. Get off this clown show and have some self-respect. Pull the cord on the Aaron Rodgers experience. Go get your own guy. Go get your own culture. Go get your own head coach. Because newsflash, this ain't working. And it's never going to. All right, let's get to what would normally lead my show every week, a Monday Night Football reaction. Normally what would be seen as a Ben Stone reaction, but again, we're recording today, so let's just throw it all together into one. It's a lot of narratives this week. It's a lot of things going on. I'm trying to keep everyone in the loop. But the Pittsburgh Steelers come out victorious once again. They are 6-2, if I'm not mistaken, at the top of their division. I would assume so. They are 6-2. I know the lost this week, the Ravens, atop their division, and the ability to just continue to find ways to win. That is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here's the problem. We've seen this story before if you're Pittsburgh. Let me ask you if you've ever heard this. I'm gonna recite to you a story. There's this really good head coach, really smart, really capable, gets more out of less, and coaches up a defense that is stifling. Beats up on bad opponents, and has a quarterback that can't make the play, but can make a play. They eventually make it into the playoffs and lose in the first round. The problem with the Pittsburgh Steelers craze that is now starting to go on is people are, again, we're in the part of the year where it's week 8 and the Steelers still aren't losing a lot of games. And then we remember at the end of the day, it's Pittsburgh. If we look at their schedule, they've beaten Kirk Cousins, coming off of an Achilles injury, where he had mentioned before as well, he just was too scared to step up, with Arthur Smith, the head coach as well, being able to give all the little juicy details about the Falcons personnel. Bo Nix, in his second start, only scored 13 points in that game. The Los Angeles Chargers, who had Taylor Heineke running it out there for some of that game. They lose to the Cowboys. They lose to Joe Flacco. They beat Aiden O'Connell. They beat 50-year-old Aaron Rodgers. And they beat horrendous Daniel Jones. So if we're just going through the wins for the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I get it, just win. We're looking at it and we're saying this. They beat Kirk Cousins after week 1 coming off of a torn Achilles, in which they had the former head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. They beat Bo Nix in his second start, Taylor Heineke, who came in for Justin Herbert, 50-year-old Aaron Rodgers, Aiden O'Connell, and Daniel Jones. I'm not surprised. The question about the Pittsburgh Steelers has never been about, are they competent? Can they be a stable organization? Can they win 9 to 10 games? We've always known that with Pittsburgh. This idea that it's shocking that they're 6-2, I guess it is a little. Like, I didn't expect them to be this good. But this Steelers team, it's not an AFC conference title contender. It's not a Super Bowl contender. And I wouldn't pick them to win a singular playoff game. Because at the end of the day, in 2024, defense no longer wins you championships. And the wins that the Pittsburgh Steelers are getting are over Daniel Jones and Bo Nix in his second start and 50-year-old Aaron Rodgers and Aiden O'Connell. In the playoffs, you're not getting Aiden O'Connell and 50-year-old Aaron Rodgers and second start of the season Bo Nix. You're going to have to go through Josh Allen. You're going to have to go through C.J. Stroud. You're going to have to go through Lamar Jackson. You're going to have to go through Patrick Mahomes. And when you're taking Russell Wilson to that fight, which, call it what you want. You want to beat your chest that he was 20 for 28 and had 278 yards against an abysmal Giants team, you go ahead and do so, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. But I'll be here at the end of the year saying I told you so. Because what's going to happen is this frisky, plucky Steelers team, led by Mike Tomlin, who is clearly a good coach, and no one has ever disputed that he's not a fantastic coach. But what's going to happen is this team's going to flame out. They won't win this division, but if they do, again, it wouldn't matter. They'll win 9, they'll win 10 games. They'll take Russell Wilson into the playoffs. They'll take this defense into the playoffs, and they'll get boat raced because their weapons are less than ideal. Najee Harris has been pretty good recently, but still, you look at these wide receivers. I'm not buying the trio of George Pickens, Calvin Austin, and Van Jefferson. Call me insane. Say I'm being a hater. Every year it's the same thing, and every year I'm right. It doesn't matter how many times I'm right about the Pittsburgh Steelers, you will still find a way to argue with me. I'm not saying they're a bad team. Not even saying they're a fraudulent team. I'm saying I've seen it before. Mike Tomlin, good, smart, physical, tough head coach. Steelers play just like their head coach. Tough, physical. Defense is stifling. They beat up on a bunch of bad quarterbacks like Aiden O'Connell and 50-year-old Aaron Rodgers and Taylor Heineke and second start Bo Nix. And then they get into the playoffs. And then they have to play a real quarterback like CJ Stroud or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes. And they'll get flattened like they do every year. This is not new information. This is not me giving you a hot take. The problem is we've seen this Steelers story year in and year out with Mike Tomlin. He's going to be a good head coach. He's going to get you 9 to 10 wins. You're definitely going to beat up on the bad teams just because you are more competent and you have a standard higher than that team. And you're not dysfunctional. No one thinks you are. The problem is you're too functional. You're too functional every year, getting more out of less with Mike Tomlin, but you'll never get over the hump. This team is not a conference championship team. They're not a Super Bowl team. I'm not even sure they're a one win in the playoffs team. They'll get there, but they'll bring Russell Wilson to a Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud fight. And that is the equivalent of bringing a plastic knife to a bazooka fight. And you'll get rolled. And in the offseason, it'll be the same thing. Pittsburgh Steelers fans will say, well, we got to get a new head coach. And then it never happens because you are continuously stuck on doing the same thing over and over and over again. And that's the Steelers. That is truly just what they are. An organization that is really good, but in the weirdest way possible, can't seem to get out of their own way. And they're going to win more games, and they're going to reel off a big upset. Maybe it's against the Ravens again. It's not going to change my opinion. Until you get to the playoffs and show me that this style of football works in 2024 where defense no longer wins you championships, it's just offense. You know, Brock Purdy ain't holding up trophies. It's Patrick Mahomes. Until you prove that to me, I'm just not going to buy the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you shouldn't either. It's the same thing, different year, but with a fresh coat of paint. This is Pittsburgh Steelers football under Mike Tomlin. All right, finally, let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys and their embarrassing loss to, once again, the San Francisco 49ers. Let me ask you if you've ever heard this before. The Dallas Cowboys march into San Francisco ready to show the world. They're ready to compete with the Niners and lose convincingly because that's what the Niners do. The Dallas Cowboys once again lose big to the Niners. This game was never really close, even at the end when it got a little frisky there. But Brock Purdy and the 49ers will always just have the number of the Dallas Cowboys. And the Dallas Cowboys at this point, they're broken, they're lost, and they've never recovered from that humiliating loss at home to the Green Bay Packers last year. They lost their mojo. They lost their identity. This used to be a team that had an identity. We will get you at home, we will boat race you, and our pass rushers will pin their ears back and get to the quarterback. But this team not only lacks talent, it lacks depth. This is a lot of Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and a whole lot of nothing else. The offensive line is fine. The defensive line right now is all banged up. Trayvon Diggs is fighting with reporters. The secondary is okay. The linebackers are okay. But it's to the point of, what is Jerry Jones doing? I'm not even trying to pick at Jerry Jones anymore. I'm just trying to figure out what his game plan is. Because this Cowboys team does have some talent. Dak Prescott is talented. Jake Ferguson is talented. CeeDee Lamb is talented. Trayvon Diggs is talented. Micah Parsons, when playing, is talented. And yet, Jerry Jones, who's making the money here? Who is the person that's getting paid? Why aren't they going out and solidifying the running back position? If Diontae Johnson just got traded for basically a 5th-round pick and nothing else, why in the world don't you go find a running back? I mean, why don't you just go get Tajay Spears from the Titans? Why don't you just go trade for Tony Pollard again? This is not me saying that you need to go get, I don't know, insert good running. This isn't saying call the Cardinals up and see what we can give for James Conner. It's not what I'm doing. I'm not saying that they should go get Alvin Kamara, but moderately upgrade. Go get Tajay Spears from the Titans. Go get Tony Pollard from the Titans. Go get a backup running back from a team that's got a surplus of them. This idea of standing pat with Rico Dowdle and Ezekiel Elliott is just a weird fetish at this point for the Dallas Cowboys. Do they just like looking incompetent? I don't know what the plan is here. And for the first time in my life, I'm not blaming Dak Prescott. Yeah, do I think Dak Prescott is now again overpaid? Yeah. Do I think Dak Prescott at this point in his career is an elite quarterback? No. Do I think he's a top 10 guy? Maybe. But if he is, he's 9 or he's 10. He's not a top 8 guy. But I can't blame him. He's throwing to nobody. Dak Prescott's getting paid. CeeDee Lamb's getting paid. But who else is? Trayvon Diggs' contract isn't that insane. The inability to add a supporting cast around your team, it's just insanity. At this point, you're just wasting the years of the prime players on your team. You think Dak Prescott's going to get better next year? No. If I could sit in a room with one owner in the NFL right now, it would be Jerry Jones. I would just be curious what the plan is. Because your head coach is a lame duck. He's gone at the end of the season. Dak Prescott is not exactly young anymore and is increasingly expensive. CeeDee Lamb is a star wide receiver who you pissed off going into the season because you didn't pay him right away and then ended up paying more than you would have if you just done it earlier. You bring in Zeke Elliott, which literally casual fans were like, why? I just don't see the plan for the Dallas Cowboys. And ultimately, I worry about the future of the Cowboys if I'm a Cowboys fan. This team is horrendous. There are no bright spots. There is not a lot of talent. Outside of one guy on the offensive line and Jake Ferguson's a nice tight end and CeeDee Lamb's awesome, what is there? Micah Parsons, before he got injured, was largely disappointing this year. Granted, it was a small sample size, but he wasn't great. Trayvon Diggs is still working his way back from a torn ACL, but he's fighting with reporters now. It's nonsense. It's chaos. And ultimately, it just shows me that loss to the Green Bay Packers at home was so humiliating that it broke the identity of this team, that it broke this team down to its core. And the only thing I have is Jerry Jones is just letting the contract run out on Mike McCarthy or just giving him this last year to finally say, yeah, you're out, man. We're going to go make a Godfather offer to Ben Johnson and go get some real players and figure it out next year. But that's the only thing I can get to. If that's not the plan for the Cowboys, it's not just a this year issue. I don't know what they're going to do for years to come. They're going to start trading draft picks for players? At that point, you start getting into the older years of Dak Prescott where he's not as mobile, he's not as elite as he used to be, or he's not as good as he used to be. I can't blame Mike McCarthy. Like, is he a good head coach? He's fine. Is he bad? No. Is he elite? No. But this team is the definition of mid. They're not good anywhere. They're not outstanding anywhere outside of their wide receiver. They have no difference makers. Dak Prescott's not a difference maker. Jake Ferguson's not a difference maker. This defense is bad. Mike Zimmer, once again, is being aged out of the NFL given his schemes are just dated. I don't know what you do if you're the Dallas Cowboys. Usually I'm the guy with strong opinions and beliefs and a very decisive way to go if you're a team. You can't change the quarterback. You just gave Dak Prescott nearly $60 million. You just signed CeeDee Lamb. You're not trading him. I don't see you trading Micah Parsons, even though I would think about it. Are you going to start trading picks for players? The only thing this team can do is fire Mike McCarthy at the end of the season, let him finish it out, and go get Ben Johnson. Godfather offer Ben Johnson. That is the only thing that is saving this team. Because right now, they are incompetent, they're a hard watch, and they're not very talented. If I was ranking the futures of each team in the NFC East, the Cowboys would be in last place. It's not just a this year issue. This isn't we'll take our lumps and figure it out next year. This team doesn't have a lot of talent. They haven't necessarily drafted extremely well. They haven't necessarily hit on elite level players. They can't even get running back right. Every team in the NFL's got running back right because it's not hard. It's just crazy to me that this team still has no plan and still has no identity. And it just seems like they never recovered from that loss to the Green Bay Packers. And, you start to look at their schedule for the rest of the season, and you're looking at a team that could quite possibly be one of the worst teams in the NFL. I mean, you look at teams like Washington, those aren't gimmies anymore. You look at the Dallas Cowboys as a whole having to face the Eagles. Maybe they win one of those, but the Falcons, the Eagles, the Texans, the Commanders, the Bengals, the Bucks, the Eagles, the Commanders again. There's a very good chance this team obviously misses the playoffs, but there's a chance this Dallas Cowboys team doesn't even win 6 or 7 games this year. They are seriously in a doom loop of potentially being one of the worst teams in the NFL this year. They are really flirting with not just incompetency, but irrelevancy. And you passed up on trading for a running back. You've passed up on bolstering this roster. You said no to Davante Adams. Where's all the money going, Jerry? I mean, you can't take it with you. It's easy to pick on the Cowboys, but this team just has no bright spots. And I'm the one that usually has decisive decisions. I have no idea how you fix this team. Thanks for tuning into the Ben Garcia Show. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day, whether you've been listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or for free on the iHeartRadio app where you're putting a face to the voice and watching on YouTube. We appreciate that as well. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell a friend. Tell them about the Ben Garcia Show. Don't forget to continue to watch the show as I continue to mess up my outro, but that's what I do. We're working ourselves into shape in this beautiful NFL season that we have. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back with you guys on Friday morning with a Benston reaction to Thursday Night Football, Texans, Jets. I will not be out on Halloween. I'll be focusing in on that game. I appreciate you guys. It's been a lot of work recently. Locked on Suns has been crazy. Life has been insane. Thank you so much. The channel is growing. Tremendous. I can't even believe it. So I really appreciate it. And I'm Benjamin Garcia, and it's been the Ben Garcia Show.